as a GM, as an owner, you're not willing to invest in looking at that and seeing, do we have a process? Are we doing it right? What are our competitors doing? How are we better?
It is a powerful, powerful weapon to make you valid and to build your brand.
The auctions aren't working. Their solutions that they're using right now aren't working, and they're looking to us to help them.
It's probably one of the biggest missed simple things in acquisition strategies as a brand.
You can't throw a dart at buying for private parties, and a lot of times that's what they do. I think the biggest challenge right now, and I know you and I have touched on it, is really trying to get dealers.
Are you wasting your time and money on inefficiencies in the business? Are sales down and lead conversion rates are low? Are you having problems building or maintaining inventory levels? What does it really take to win in the automotive industry?
Get the cars that make sense for your store rather than just wishing at an auction. So it gives you that better control.
With over 25 years of experience, Darrell the Wolf Steed isn't just another industry voice. He's the guy who's out there solving real problems for dealers just like you.
They'll even say in the Pacific Northwest where you're at that it's a tougher market. It's, it's tougher to find cars. The market's a little bit softer. And in the midst of all this, your turn doubled and your profit's up 75%.
Yes.
The truth hurts only when it should. Are you ready to hear the truths? Darrell is here to unpack the hard truths and the proven strategies that will take your dealership from struggling to soaring. And he is taking it all in the streets, with real talk, open dialogue, unfiltered conversations. This is the podcast series, Street Smarts, powered by SmartWolf Consulting.
Hello, everybody. My name is Darrell Steed, and I am your host with Street Smarts, powered by SmartWolf Consulting. And today we have ourselves an absolutely electric personality. That is the only way that Jen can be explained. Jen has been in the industry, both in the auction side and the vendor side, in way of coaching and developing for
retail
as well for quite a few years. Has some interesting insights. And the best part about that we're going to get to hear from Jen is a very no-nonsense, direct to the point, so that we stop making excuses and we start taking action. So with no further ado, let's welcome Jen to the podcast. Jen, thank you so much for coming in. And first off, let's start like we start every podcast. Tell us what you are doing in life that you're winning at, the things that are going great. Tell us what you want to obviously essentially tell everybody where things are going great in life.
Oh man, where are things going great in life? You know what? We're expanding, man. Van is doing amazing things with the help of you. Our acquisition coaches are dialing in their process. They're up in their game and really helping dealers understand not just buying from private parties, but how to be good at it. So it is awesome. We've added some KBB integrations. We've got all sorts of new updates inside the platform. So those things are going great.
Okay, that's perfect. And where are you winning at in life, in your own personal life, not in business?
I am a single mom of two beautiful boys, and I have one that is actually a freshman playing in a varsity football game this evening in playoffs. That is my little boy is going to be on that field, hopefully, and walk away, hopefully, too.
And just for the watching public, how much does your son love the fact that you call him your little boy?
Oh, they both love it. I'm sure, the 14-year-old's not so little anymore. Now he's like eye to eye, like kind of inching up taller. So it's all right. I got that. Like, yeah, bring it. Come on.
And as you're going through like work life and, you're dealing with, we have an ever changing market that we always have to deal with. What is the biggest challenge right now that you face working at vehicle acquisition and what you guys do with that platform?
Oh, that's a great question, Darrell. I think the biggest challenge right now, and I know you and I have touched on it, is really trying to get dealers to understand what it takes to be successful on this side. I always kind of say to dealers when I'm talking to them, you can't throw a dart at buying from private parties. And a lot of times that's what they do. They feel like, oh, it's a Band-Aid. I can just throw a dart. Let's try it. This isn't something you can go into and try. And we've talked about that a lot. And that right now in the conversations I'm having, this is the struggle. You hear it in their voices. The auctions aren't working. Their solutions that they're using right now aren't working, and they're looking to us to help them. And that's hard because a lot of them don't want to invest. And yes, I use the word invest into what it takes to be successful in this. And I know you know that firsthand.
No, yes. Fortunately, unfortunately, I'm not quite sure. Like, yes, definitely something I deal with. However, it's interesting. So with this podcast, really designed at being at that experience and, and embracing that both customers and in your staff, and then just the overall, just, how you want to be portrayed. You said something though, that actually I think warrants taking quite a bit of time to talk about is the investment side of it. I think we all know that most dealer bodies, anytime they get a vendor, consultant, tool, doesn't really much matter, software, is that they say it's an expense.
Yep.
And, I think that that's an interesting way to look at things because it's a negative connotation. And when I look at it is, yes, by root of term, it is an expense, but anything is an expense, whether you call it an investment or not. But when you really look at the investment of how would you build a store today? How would you build a business? You don't expense things. You invest in yourself, your business, your family. You don't sit there and because you have kids, I think this is very relative and we can tie it together is, can you imagine as a parent? I know we think this, but as a parent, we go like this. Yeah, my kids. Yeah, they play these sports. It's a real expense. Like if we just said like, hey, yeah, getting groceries for our kids, it's an expense.
Why am I doing that?
So yeah, guys, I'll be 100% honest. It's just, no, I don't have money for that expense. You know what? I'm going to try to feed my kids. And I think it's interesting because if you wanted your kids to do sports or they needed tutoring or you were really smart and put them to like a camp or whatever it may be, don't we as parents look at that as an investment in their future? I mean, I know I do. Maybe there are some people that are like, man, my kids are nothing but expenses and tax shelters. And if that's the case, maybe this podcast isn't for you, but is interestingly enough, why don't we look at our business like in our people? Like, why don't we invest in them, invest in the right products, tools, situations, coaching, specialization, so that we know that and when we invest, understanding that there can be payoffs and then there can be investments that weren't as good. It's no different than the stock market. We make some investments, like for instance, if you guys did not see today, so today happens to be November 1st. We'll probably see this podcast in the end of November, start of December. But I want you guys to go back when you guys watch this podcast, and I want you to look at what Carvana came in today at. Carvana stored above $300 a share.
Yep.
Now, if you bought Carvana when they were on the brink of bankruptcy, you love life right now.
Yeah, 2 years ago, right?
Winning. However, if you bought Carvana yesterday, you're winning a little bit, but you ain't winning that much. So when you think about that, though, when you buy a stock and it doesn't pay off, it was a bad investment, or it just hasn't matured yet, or hasn't got to that point. But did you sit there and say, I didn't want to take the chance? Or did you say, well, I'll kind of maybe buy this stock? No, you bought it. You did it or you didn't do it. So I'd love you, Jen, to tell us, when looking at the investment side or looking at it as an expense or investment, kind of how you see things, but more importantly, like what could we do differently that would kind of change that mindset?
Well, you nailed it. That kind of maybe. I mean, that's what I hear all the time. Well, I kind of maybe want to do this. It's kind of maybe. You don't kind of maybe want to do this. It can't be surface level. In order to be successful, yes, you do need to invest first in a person. That person that's going to do this job. And you and I have talked about this a lot. This is probably the hardest job in the dealership, especially now. We look at inventory shortages. We know that there are not as many vehicles in those prime years right now in the market, on the road. There's not. So if you don't have the right person, that's going to be a problem there. You need to have the mindset too, where we're going to invest in this as a whole of the dealership, the whole dealership, from your receptionist to everybody is bought in. I don't care if it's the girls in the office, the detail, we're all bought in that we're buying these cars from private parties. And that is how this dealership is going to do it. You need to invest in the technology, and in the coaching. And if you're not willing to look at that and see that, then you're not going to be successful. One of the things I learned from you that really blew me away just recently. Invest in what your competitors are doing. You and I were talking with a dealer and you told them to mystery shop. Well, I took your advice and I mystery shopped 5 KBB stores and 5, on the website. Darrell was blown away at how pathetic it was. I mean, it was pathetic. And there's no other words. How about I received the same exact email 6 times from one dealership, 6 different times, the same email. And guess what? The subject was talking about a car I was interested in. I had submitted a KBB ICO to sell my car. I wasn't interested in a vehicle. Why are you sending me the same email? It doesn't even make so. As a GM, as an owner, you're not willing to invest in looking at that and seeing, do we have a process? Are we doing it right? What are our competitors doing? How are we better than? No, they're not. They're throwing darts and they're going, I can't believe it didn't work. Why didn't it work?
It's funny you say that, right? I'm sure people have heard what I'm about to say or phrased in a slightly different way, but it's the old spray and pray method. If we spray it everywhere, you pray you hit someone and you're like this, we got him. And you don't realize that what you actually did is you created a dynamic that you missed more than you hit, right? It's, now, I mean, yes, if for home defense guys, spray and pray is a great idea, right? Get a shotgun, put a buckshot in there. Someone comes through your door, point it at the direction, spray and pray. Listen, one of those BBs is hitting them.
They hit it. Yeah, right? That's how I hunt, actually.
However, when we give you 300 opportunities, or if it's private party listings and you get thousands of listings per day, the spray and pray doesn't really get it done in the sense of, yes, you will get results, but never the results you could do. And then you have to ask yourself, how many people do you offend or turn off, one or the other, by having this, and I hate to say this vanilla approach. And some people have heard me say this, and I don't take any offense to it, but, vanilla ice cream's great. Like, I think it's, it's obviously it's a standard flavor. No one's going to go wrong, right? But what's better than vanilla? Everything else. It's toppings, right? Who doesn't want some toppings, right? Who doesn't want? So it's you've got to kind of have a different message. You have to have a unique approach. And the reason why is what you experienced. You go and secret shop a lead, and you were doing it so that you can better your customers. So before I move forward with this point, I want to emphasize 2 things, guys. First, Jen said she learned something from me. We just need to rewind to that, and we need to make sure we take note of that. Okay. Actually, if we could rewind this podcast and then rip right back to that, that'd be great. However, the second thing that I want you guys to know about Jen, and when I say passionate, and when I say direct and to the point, is she took time out of her day. This is not something that her company makes her do. I know this. And she went and secret shopped. Why? Because one, she sought to understand. And then more importantly, she wanted to figure out how she could then have a conversation with dealers to navigate them down the right path, right? So doing something out of pure care, which is going to tie into where we're going to go in the next conversation. But I just wanted to illustrate that as we make this point. And we use KBB as an example because they are the most trusted brand out there when it comes to validations. And there's other tools out there. There's other lead providers that provide acquisition leads. But the simple fact is they provide everyone with the same templates. So they give you all the same templates. And if you don't have an idea of what you want to stand for or do, you're all sending out the same nonsense as everybody else. Now, why is that important? Well, I've told every person that I've created a buying center for, or that I coach or develop, is why buying centers are unique right now, and they'll be this way for years because it takes that long for dealers to catch up. But the simple fact is you don't even have to be good at it.
You have to be different.
Because everybody else is serving up the same blasé product. If you're just better than them, you're going to be fantastic. Now, if you're one of the ones that work with me, I don't accept mediocrity as a result. So you're going to be good at it, or we don't work together. But it's because if you're fantastic, you never give anyone the opportunity to even get back in the door. See, once I put them outside, like the good to great function, right? Drive the bus, don't be on it. Once I get the wheel on that bus, I'm never giving it back to you. Yeah. And so I just have a different methodology about it. But that doesn't mean you have to be that way. You could just say, oh, let me go secret shop find the 4 or 5 people that are doing it, say, wow, that's really boring, and just figure out what you do better and then say that. So I think it's interesting that you took the time to do that and you took that care, because transitioning into the care you took to help your customers is that experience, is an experience for vendors to dealers, dealers to their staff, staff to their customers, right? It all goes hand in hand, but it's a partnership. So SmartWolf Consulting and Street Smarts is partnership, process, and profits, right? Because at the end of the day, if we don't make any money, great, we're really cool partners and we have really great processes, but we're all broke. I don't know how that plays. But it starts with partnerships, because we have to be partners. We have to have care and consideration for what people are doing. And then we have to make sure that we do that from the vendor side to the dealer to their employees, and the employees to their customers. So knowing that, when you're looking at this, whether it be your coaching or what you see or what you experience in life, where do you put experience now in the automotive space and used cars, whether it's acquisition or sales, and where do we need to focus to get better?
That's a great question. I actually, Jesse Cole, Savannah Bananas, that is where the automotive space needs to be. I mean, I lived in Savannah. I watched, and we talked about this. I watched Savannah. They went from the Savannah Sand Gnats to what they are now. And his whole philosophy is fans first. Dealerships talk about that, but we don't do it. It's not customer first. Take it from our side, take it from acquisition, right? So here's this person, they're trying to sell their car, most likely because they bought a new one and the salesperson told them to kick it out because it was easier. But they're sitting there, they don't do this every day. We do. It seems simple to us, but it's a big deal to them. But we're taking it in a manner that it's like, nah, call me. It's so not personal. It's so not caring. It's so not, what are their needs? What are going on with them? And I think that the dealers that are setting themselves apart are just doing a little bit of it. I mean, they're touching the surface. If they really, and I get it, time's hard and we're trying to get to as many as possible. So you can't maybe give but you can. You should be able to give every person the time to find out what their needs are. Why are they selling it? Oh, you bought something else and the salesperson told you to kick it. Okay. Or, hey, my husband got sick, whatever that story is, that person needs somebody to hold their hand. And all of that's going to take is one dealer to really understand, or one individual to really understand and start asking questions instead of, oh, is your car still available? Oh, I'm interested in to buy it. No, but hey, why are you selling? What's going on? There's a big difference between those two. And I think that's going to come. Again, I keep stressing it, but it comes from the general manager. They have to understand, or the owner, they have to understand that whether it's from our buying team, our sales team, we need to stop all the automation. And I know we're going to always have automation, and start having more human connections with it. And that is what's going to take dealerships. It's going to be that customer first, whether it's sales, service, even in life, I've found lately, I just want to talk to somebody. And we've gotten away from that. And we've created this society where we're not talking to people and we just text and we do all this other stuff. And I'm guilty of it too sometimes. But just having a conversation, especially in the automotive field, I think will take us a lot farther.
Yeah, you know what? Let's stay there for a moment, because let's talk about texting, right? Texting is needless to say, texting is a big experience gap in what we've done, because of just how it is, right? It's an instant gratification. It is an effective way to communicate. So as I go down this path, I don't want anyone to think I'm promoting do not text people. That would be nuts. It's a great way to do it. But when we think about that, right, it's again having careful thought about experience is, okay, so we're dependent on text, right? Like now email, for instance, let's just use Craigslist as a form for private party acquisition. So there's not a lot of phone numbers on that. Why? Well, it took a couple bad apples to get spam people, and then they didn't want to put it on there. So now you email them. Well, then there's lots of blocks of figuring out how to get through the email filters and things of that nature, which certain people know how to do it. Certain people don't. Okay. I happen to be one of them, but it took a lot of time of figuring out how not to get beat up by that thing to get through. But when we think about text, whether it's Facebook, it's OfferUp, Car Gurus, Cars.com, Auto Trader, first party lead, whatever the lead performs is, right, for acquisition, we send the text And we have to ask ourselves a couple questions. One, how many times in your life, as you guys are watching this, okay, now don't make it weird and you're around people, but you're watching this, raise your hand if you've ever had someone misinterpret a text you sent.
Oh, yeah.
So I know I have. I'll raise my hand, man. I'll be the first one to say it. And you know what? I'll tell you the text that I sent. I sent something like, hey, I'll be home in a while. And this gets blown out of proportion. Like I'm doing something. I'll tell you what. And you're like, I have to reread it and go, I'll be home in a while. Okay. Like, and at the end of the day, it's how someone interprets something, which is very frustrating. It's frustrating for all parties involved. However, didn't we do that to ourselves? Didn't we do that ourselves by the fact that we stopped having conversations? We gave people cell phones. We gave people texting. I mean, I was young when obviously, we rotary phones and we had to like spin that thing on the wall, right? It was like, right? I'm with you. And if Jen was my sister, then she'd be on the phone and I'd be like, hey, get off the phone. No one else can make any calls because there was no call. So when you think about that is we don't connect to people. So with text messaging is a way of an experience. How do we take text messaging? Because I agree with you. I'm a full component in making a phone call first before anything else, because I want to hear their voice. I think there's a lot of things that can be done there. But with a text message, what is something that you think we could do with text messaging that would allow us to create a better connection than what we're offering now?
I think that's great. I think the text needs to be that initial, right? It's that initial conversation. Why? What do we know about the general public? They're scared, right? They're scared of scams. They're scared you're going to be a serial killer. They're scared, you know what I mean? So they're scared, right? So, hey, I'm Jen. I noticed that you don't have the VIN. I'd love to get a Carfax. Do you have a car? Like, I want to break down that initial wall first. And then it's as simple as this. Do you have time for a quick conversation? I just want to find out a little bit more. It might be easier. You know what? Most people are going to say yes. We've started that little bit of thread in the text, right? So you broke down my wall. I know you're real now. I know you're not, I don't think you're Jeffrey Dahmer. I've maybe like put your name somewhere. That's the other thing we'll talk about. Y'all, if you have buy centers, if you're buying, please put those people's names out there because they're going to Google them. And if they can't find them on your website, they're going to go, oh my God, they're not real. But anyways, besides the point, then we have that conversation, right? I broke down that first wall, right? There's a couple more, but I broke down that first wall. And that's how you break the ice. But then it's a phone call, but you ask. Do you mind? I want to get some information. I want to find out more about your vehicle and why you're selling. Hey, I've got care there. I actually am caring about it. I want to talk to them.
It's funny that you say that. And I'm glad you did, because I was waiting for you to kind of jump and get there. Was you have to ask, right? Like you can't say, hey, when can I, like, you can't say like, I'm going to call you right now, or I just called you. Like once you ask for their permission, right? Now, they may say, no, I don't have time for a call. Then they put you in a box and you have to continue texting. Now, there's some other things that you can do. There's a lot of coaches out there that can show you stuff. Right. But you want to ask because you want to have those different forms of contact. But when you ask, and sure, I guess you could be somebody that doesn't really care, but then fakes it well. Sure, I guess you could be that person. I'm not saying you couldn't. Right. But the moment that you have that care point and you actually have concern or empathy or care, whatever synonym you want to use in this, right, is then you act like a real human and you make that connection is, hey, what I'd like to do is try to, get you the highest offer, get you the highest offer available or the market value offer. Do you have 5 minutes to go over some things so that I can put in all the pertinent data to increase your offer, whatever it may be. Right. Then all of a sudden what happens is you create a connection via text, then you move to the next step, but it starts with that care point and asking, right?
Ask, I think it shows that empathy. You're asking, you're not, and you know what? I might not be comfortable. And I've seen it in some of our, better dealers where the person said, I'm more comfortable starting right now, here on Facebook. Is that okay? Yeah, of course that's okay. And then they're like, oh, wait, you know what? I feel comfortable with you now. Let's call. But we asked, we got to their, it's kind of, maybe lowering ourselves to their level, and it does break a wall. And I think
that's important because now we're going to talk about experience. Since we talked about the care factor and you brought it up, which was great, is Jen brings up. I told you guys we're gonna get no nonsense. She ain't gonna mess around. Okay, she's gonna go right at it. Like she's gonna give you.
I got a little passion about it.
Not gonna let you guys breathe about the excuses she hears daily, and I'm glad she's doing it. So you've decided you want a buying center, acquisition strategy, whatever we want to call it, OSP program, great. You've decided you're going to make it under your dealership. I personally advise that that's not the greatest way to brand it, but there's reasons why. But if you've decided to do that, then embrace it. Embrace it all the way. And what she brought up is probably one of the biggest missed simple things in acquisition strategies as a brand is, can I find it as a separate brand? For instance, guys, look at my backdrop. I own, and my name tag says I am president of SmartWolf Consulting. Okay, it is a guaranteed success program to build a buying center, and I have nothing but countless results. However, what you're going to see in my background is Street Smarts, which is a different version, right? A do-it-yourself type of option powered by SmartWolf. So you'll still see SmartWolf, but you don't miss what is on the background. So in your website, let's just say you're, Darrell Steed Motors, and that's my buying that, and then I have buying center. I should have a buying center with a tile. I should have a drop down, but more importantly, I need a staff page.
Yes.
I need a link so that I can identify that, because she brings up a absolutely critical conversation point of, if I can't verify who you say you are, I'm going to be 100% honest. There is zero chance that I'm feeling comfortable about this until I show up. So even as we go through the process, then I show up to your store, I'm still on anxiety bubbles. And then I get there, then it's relieved. But then we go right back into it when we start talking numbers. You've never got them to feel comfortable with this from a subconscious level. Nope. So knowing that, Jen, what do you see, and more importantly, not what you see, is why is that so important? One, as a female, right? Because I think it's vastly important for the safety and security to transact from a female standpoint. But two, why do you think that's so important for connection with people?
It's like Facebook. It's the guarantee I always joke about Tommy Boy, right? The guarantee on the box. I want to see your picture. I want to see that you're real. I want to see that you actually work there. That is natural human behavior. Unfortunately, our society has prone us to go there, right? Sure. We've got, you've seen all the articles, you've seen all the new, person sells something on Facebook, gets, mugged, attacked, murdered, whatever. There's horrible things. So when I am selling something, whether it's, a garden tool or my car, I am going to look at everything. So you're calling me from this number. I'm going to Google that damn number. And if it is not tied to the dealership that you said you are tied to, and if I can't find your picture on that staff page or something tying me back there, we've just ended all communication. For me, I'm completely skeptical. I don't know who you are. You didn't say who you are. You say you work at that dealership, but I can't find any record of it. Why would I trust that? I am the general public. We don't trust anything. God forbid we trust a dealership. So if you're
also, as you're talking about that, real quick, Jen, as you're talking about that, because you brought up Facebook, Instagram, any social medias, that's an extension of your website, guys. And Jen can obviously finish this. You also, not only do you have to have a page, okay? So I'll give you guys a little story about myself. Roughly a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, well, maybe 3 years ago now, I looked like I ate me. Okay, so I was definitely double, if not triple the fun. Okay, I was a big guy. And so the other part of having a staff page is you need to be current so that when they see your face, if you got a haircut, you've got to keep that up to date, because we had this show, you guys may have seen it, maybe have not, but it's definitely a word and a movement in America. It's called catfish. Okay, is you also don't want to misrepresent yourself as being what you're not. So if I walk in and I see Jen's face and I'm like, wow, okay, she's a very adorable, cute young lady. And then I walk in and it looks like Jen ate Jen and I can't recognize Jen.
I'm out. I'm running the other way.
It's going to be a problem with experience. So I would love to hear what you think, or if you think that I'm wrong on that and just absolutely a jerk about it, or if that has validity.
Totally has validity. And hey, look, when I have a dealer request a demo, I Google them. I Google the name, I Google the email, I try to find everything I can. So imagine the general public, and I'm going to put my phone out there, or I'm going to put my personal stuff out there to try to sell something. You heard it right. I am going to stalk you like the dang FBI. And if it doesn't line up, I am out. I am out. I am not going to do it. I'm going to head my little butt down to CarMax, because I know CarMax, they say everything, and I can just walk in and do it just like they said. I don't have to deal with a scary person that doesn't look like who they said they were.
Sure.
I'm out. And I mean, it's just, unfortunately, society has put us that way, and that's natural human behavior. That is, and let's call it, hey, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Women, we tend to be, a little more cautious and like to stalk a little bit.
As you should be.
Bad stalking skills, right? And if it doesn't add up, I'm out. I'm checking and going this way. So it's all got to add up.
Now, curiously, is as we talk about like that experience, right? And then being able to see someone and being able to, because again, guys, the reason we bring this up, you're probably wondering like, wow, this doesn't make a lot of sense, or we're in a rabbit hole. We're talking about experience, right? Experience comes in so many different levels. Can you imagine if you have these pictures, you have the staff page, and then they go shop? So specifically about Jen's situation of secret shopping for her dealers to have an embodied conversation. She gets 6 different emails. Some of them are exact same. So now she says, you know what? They all look like junk, but I'm going to just Google them, or I'm going to go to their website. So she does. Let's just say she's that one that really takes that extra effort. So then she goes and looks, and she's like, I can't see any of them. What happens if you're the one that actually just, you fell asleep at the wheel, so you use absolutely shitty templates, but then you actually have pictures and reviews and everything? Don't you believe? Don't you think? Don't you actually? Doesn't everything show that they're going to go to you? And then more importantly, as she says, like CarMax and everything else, you contact someone on Facebook, right? So, and I always ask the female perspective, because in general, I'm not going to say always, but they typically are more cautious. They're more thoughtful about what they do. And why is that important? Well, I personally believe every communication should be sent out like we're talking to the most cautious female voice, because we're addressing everybody, not a very narrow scope. Okay. However, if they're on Facebook, how many people do you think, and guys, when you watch this podcast, put it in the comments and everything else, I would love to see this, are comfortable with people coming to their house or Walmart parking lot or a Starbucks parking lot to transact and negotiate? Give it a percentage. And how many people? I personally will say 10. You know what? I'm going to throw out 10, and I'm going to think, you know what? I'm going to be optimistic and say 10. I know it's lower than that, but let's say 10. Now, you have to ask yourself, and I'm going to have Jen give you a perspective too, because mine's a little different, is if you're a buying center, acquisition strategy, dealer, whatever you want to call yourself, okay, late for dinner, okay, is when you do this, is what do you give in way of experience? The pictures, the communication of this, that would make me feel more comfortable coming to you than like anyone privately, and competitors like CarMax or Carvana. For you, Jen, what would be like 3 things for you that would be super important or have like a massive amount of value that would make you want to move that direction?
Reviews.
Okay. I told you, simple to the point, right in your face, guys. Okay. Like she's just no mincing words about it.
I'm okay. So I live on 5.5 acres. We've had crazy wind, and I need a new chainsaw. And I want it to be electric, because I just am a girl, whatever. I sat there and I just read reviews, and that is what, if I'm going to sell to somebody, especially my car, I'm looking at the reviews. If I'm going to buy something, I'm looking at the reviews. If it's got crappy reviews, you don't buy it. Right. And if I can't see your reviews, how can I be comfortable? CarMax has the name, so we know that we can't fight that. But if you could get the review everywhere, put it everywhere. I want it everywhere. Put it on your Facebook, put it everywhere. I don't care if it's 1, 2, 3, 4. If it's only one, it's one review. Oh, wow. Somebody else had a good experience. Oh.
And it's funny you say review. So guys, so that there's no misconception of how I set this podcast up. They're sent a questionnaire just saying, I'm going to talk about how you're winning. We're going to talk about used cars, experience, and things that's it. There's no topics we're going to go because I want to. So I didn't ask her about that, but what's interesting about reviews, right? That's where she said is think about that. So reviews to her is one of the biggest things. Now, why is that interesting? It happens to be the #1 search term on Google when people are searching dealership behind their actual dealership. So it's reviews, complaints, and then I can't remember the other two, but it's reviews and complaints. And why is that important? Now, I always reference this kind of as a joke, not really, but a joke, but kind of a joke, just in case someone sees this and then they want to get mad at me. That I always joke about that criminal racket. You might know what they're called. Gosh, what's their name? Yelp. Where when you magically pay them, all your good reviews come up. Yep. Now, I profess to Google because I think Google, that's where most of us live. It's a big, huge force. But people, and we've done this study in stores, in every store I've built over the last 15 years, I've heard people get similar results. Jen and I are going to go to lunch. And I say, hey, Jen, we're going to go over to this sushi place. And man, it is phenomenal. Best sushi you've ever had. When surveyed, 7 out of 10 people will still go look at the reviews, even though we're friends. I've told her it's great. She's still going to go look at the reviews. Now, here's the interesting part. She goes and looks at the reviews, and it's like a 1.5 out of 5. This is no kidding. 50% or more will then make an excuse why they're not hungry.
I will.
They will trust an opinion of a stranger over an opinion of a friend because they don't believe they had any reason to lie about it.
Yep.
So reviews is a powerful, powerful weapon to make you valid and to build your brand. And you have to ask yourself, do you treat your reviews as important as the actual transaction itself?
I got to add something. No. Do you ask for a review? And I would, if I had to guess, if I take, I'm just going to take half of our dealers that are signed up with Van right now. If they ask for a review, I would say only 3% do.
Sure.
And
if you guys didn't know, when she says asking, if you get a bad review, oh, don't you worry. You won't have to ask. They will put that everywhere.
No, I compare private party sellers are equally as tough as Southeastern Toyota buyers. If you've ever worked in the South and they've got to go through all of SET stuff, they will pinpoint, nitpick every little bit. They are horrible. And private parties are worse. If you tell them it's going to take 30 minutes and it takes 35, you're done. It's everywhere. And I've seen it on the flip side. I follow Facebook groups to see. There was one a while back in the town I'm in. And I mean, they just chastised this dealer, and the comments that just went on with it. It went on and on. There was like 178 some comments. I'm in a tiny little area, y'all. And it was something silly. It was like, they told me it was going to take 30 minutes and it took 45.
And guys, so the reason that's important is if they're going to crush you or they're going to like put bad name on you, you don't have to ask. That's coming. Don't you worry. Yeah. However, and this hasn't changed in 25 years, which I still try to wrap my head around it. The experience that's like great. People like, holy cow, Jen's the best. Darrell's fantastic. Everything. They'll never do it unless you ask.
Nope.
So you really do have to get comfortable with just asking, hey guys, and I'll tell you what I do. I teach everyone the same thing. Consider this like a free lesson. Write this down. Is we just go, hey folks, if you wouldn't mind taking 3 minutes while we go get your check cut to write a review on Google. What that does is allows us to let other people know that not only do we tell you what we're going to do, but we stand by what we say we're going to do, and then we deliver on what we said.
And most people are going to be like,
I can tell you right now, every time we buy a car, we're at a 75% capture of reviews to purchases. No, we're not at 100%, but hey, got to strive for, you know what? Hey, it's better than 5 and it's better than 0. And yes, we're always trying to get above 85. But I also profess to the 80-20 rule, right? If I ask 100 people and 80 of them did it, I'm winning.
Good. Right? But it's now,
even she talks about and we'll use some new terms, right? I don't know what we called them back when we were kids, Jen, but the trolls.
Oh yeah,
they want to sit there and give you the bad reviews, and like she said, just obliterate you online. First off, anyone watching this podcast that wants to troll and just put absolute nothing but negativity in my thing, all comments are welcome. Okay, I'm a firm believer in all publicity is good publicity. So please, by all means, show me how much you care about me by showing me how much you don't care about me. Two is understanding when you're going to have trolls. You can't be perfect to all people. So if you know that, what you need to do is prepare for the worst and expect the best, which means if we're preparing for the worst and knowing there's going to be bad people out there that you can never make happy, then we need to make sure the ones we do make happy help us keep
Really.
our brand intact so that it's not just the bad reviews.
But also the reviews can help you get better. I mean, if they are not being trolls and just not being nitpicky, but there are things that, you talked about it before, that we're not just working with this group, we're working with this group. So if this person was that upset that they took the time, what was it? Were they just being trolls, or was there something that we missed that we need to look at? So
great point is you have to be willing to get criticism too. Like if you get a 1 and the guy didn't like you, okay, yeah, that's tough to swallow.
Right.
You don't know what you did.
Right.
But if you get a 3 or a 4 or 2 and they give you what you did wrong, you've got to take that on the chin and say, what we're saying. Actually, I'll say it in a way that you hear on a podcast all the time or on like all things used cars thing is like the dealership you think you run and the dealership you actually run. Like you need to take that and say, I thought this is what we provided to our customers. And then when you get one of those, you got to go, if that's how they perceived it, we need to take a real strong look. Are we delivering what we think we're delivering, or is it coming off a different way, right? There's nothing wrong with learning and educating yourself, because guess what? If you want to take your ego out for 10 seconds, no more than that, I don't want people to freak out and start having anxiety, but just 10 seconds and said, man, if we just did that one thing better, we might be able to buy another car or 2 cars. You have to ask yourself, if you just decided that I'm not going to know everything today and you learned one thing, could you get better? And if you say yes, why aren't you?
Right, because they're
like, I mean, it's that simple. Why aren't you getting better if you know that it would make you more money? So I think it's interesting, though, because when we come to experience, it is one of those things where, I mean, we've touched on having pictures on websites. We've touched on reviews. We've touched on that communication. Why? Because there's so many different interpretations, everybody, of like, what is experience to everyone else? Like you're actually going to see next week. So right after Jen's, there's going to be a podcast that releases, and I'm going to be 100% honest. I don't know if anyone's done this before, so this could come completely off the rails. I actually got a customer to come on this podcast that sold their car to a buying center, and we're going to walk down their whole journey.
Wow.
Live and in color. We are going to go live with it, and we're going to do it. And I'll be 100% honest, it might be one of the greatest things ever, or first. But here's the thing. If they tell us that dealers are horseshit and garbage, or they say private parties are scammers, whatever else, isn't this our opportunity? And by the way, guys, I have not sent them a script. I told them I want them to just come off unfiltered. So we'll see. This is like I don't know. But if they say all these things, isn't this a great opportunity for everybody involved? Not just myself to learn, not just for is for people to hear a customer that isn't being scripted, that doesn't have talking points, to just say, here's what they thought, here's what they experienced. Now, the 2 things I know about this customer is that they'd end up selling their car to a buying center. Okay. And then 2 weeks later, their family members were selling cars for both themselves and their daughter. And so they raved about the experience comparative. And so in turn, we're going to get in. That's the only question I'm going to ask them is like, how do you think businesses can be better, or why is that so important with experience? Right. Because I want to tie it into experience, but I'm really interested to see what their thought process was when they listed it. Why didn't they sell it? What did they run into? Because we make assumptions of stuff,
but we don't know.
We never actually get a customer to sit down and give us the real. And so I'm pretty excited.
Nobody knows exactly. I mean, this is
sure.
Yes, dealers have been doing this forever, but no one really knows like, hey, that's a good dealer. Like that's how you do it. Everything's going to be different. It's going to be different based on your market. It's going to be different. What works in California is not going to work, in mid-Michigan. It's going to be different. So getting a perspective like that is huge.
And I think it's that is again, when you understand your market, the experience is the same everywhere, right? Yeah. We have to have the same type of things we do. How it's interpreted, how we sell it, or how we talk about it is going to be different because, for instance, right, she's right about going intercoastal or from coast to coast is what happens in California. That's where I reside. I will tell you right now, in certain cities, you have seconds, not minutes. It is fast. And then I have clients, let's say in Middle America, Missouri, right? AKA misery. Okay. So I will be 100% honest. Some of the things that I go over with them and teach them, I preface with, guys, here is the message, but you want to deliver this in a much slower pathway, more of a conversation, because if you just go bing and you just hit them with it, that's not middle America. No. That's LA. That's
Yeah.
San Francisco. So it's the message still can be same structure. The delivery and the experience has to obviously be different, but that's you knowing your own market. What I'd also like to go into, Jen, because I think this is where you live. So Jen has a unique background. Okay. She worked in retail. Okay. And she worked in retail when, I mean, not in the COVID times, guy, when you actually had to work. Okay. Not when you just took orders. Okay. And then she decided for some particular reason, let me transfer over to the dark side and go work for the auctions.
Yeah.
Now, after spending time over there and, into, the enemy itself, she then said, and I mean, when Jen had took the full circle around the world here, guys, she starts in retail, then she goes 180 degrees to the dark side. And then she says, you know what? I could do this dance around the carpet one more time and let me go 180 degrees back to private party. What I'd love to hear from you, Jen, is seeing all three phases, right? Yeah. What has been kind of more like the most unique experience? What did you learn in each three phases? And then more importantly, what has made you, because I've gotten to work with you a little bit, what has made you so passionate about where you're at now?
Oh, that's a great question. I also married into the business too, which I highly, highly do not recommend. It is abort at all costs. So what did I learn? So when I started in the business, I was a baby. I was young, dumb, and just full of energy.
Like me now. Got it.
Yeah, okay. Right. So I was privileged enough, though my ex was not maybe the best at commitment with relationships. He was amazing at used cars. So I learned used cars from him. I learned financing from him. I spent a great amount of time. So that was kind of my base, was used cars, knowing that if you had a profitable used car department, you were going to be the top dog in the dealership. When I left and I went to the auction side, that was the most eye-opening thing I've ever experienced, because it was amazing at how, I'm not going to use the word, how uneducated 85% of the used car managers I dealt with were. And it was mind-blowing to see what they were putting in these cars and wanted out of them. And it was just like, wow. And then to see what they were buying on top of it. And that was kind of when I learned this cycle of, dealerships play on this roller coaster, this up and down. They don't really know. They fill holes. They don't really know. And I'll say 85% of them. And then I landed at Van, and I started off as an acquisition coach. I knew really nothing about buying from private parties. I just knew the car business. And I took this journey and I kind of watched it evolve more and more. And then it kind of struck me. And it's that taking ADESA, or the auction side, and this in my dealership experience, and going, I can help dealers. I can help them stop this cycle of, oh, we're just going to go fill holes. We're just going to leave our hand up. I've got a buyer and he just buys cars. And every bit of my experiences came back. Like, I remember being a salesperson and, the buyer would come back with the truckload of cars and we'd all go, what is all that? We can't sell that. What is that? And then these dealers that were flipping cars and selling them at the auction. And that was what I realized my buyers were buying. And now with Van, we can help them pick the cars that make the most sense, right? And we can help them stay away from that, where you can dial it. I'm going to use your words again. Ugh, that sounds like vinegar coming out. It's a dial now. If it's done right, I don't have to fill holes. I can turn it up, turn it down, but I can keep it consistent. And that's really where my passion comes from, is knowing that we have the ability between our acquisition team, between our technology, to show dealers how to do that and get smart about it and not have to play on that roller coaster anymore, is really where my passion lies. The problem is too few dealers want to do it and put the work in. That's where the problem lies right now.
Well, and I think that's interesting, right? It's getting to see your experiences, right? Me in full circle, right? I mean, I think passion in anything, right, makes it better. When you're passionate about something, like even when you're wrong, it's easy to pivot, because like if someone told you and could prove to you, hey, that's not the right thing, like you could track and adjust, because you would just take what you knew you're right about and change that one piece. But what I think is also interesting is, like you talked about, is it is a dial in the sense of you need to ensure that like you have a strategy, right? And you go after the, but is to understand, like, I believe that there's still this construct or predication that like, oh, I go to the auction and I'm just going to get the cars and we're going to make money, because for a long time we did. And I'll be 100% honest, COVID completely destroyed for the next couple years of you being, I won't say profitable, but like actionably profitable consistently at the auction. So knowing that is they like, oh, well, buying cars private party or service drive or any of these, it's so hard.
Yeah.
Have any of you guys been to the auction lately or even before COVID? Can you remember 4 years ago? It was still the same thing. You would book out 200-300 cars and maybe you got 5% close ratio. And maybe you were a power buyer, so you were a crusher. You got 10% close ratio. And when I look at that is, yes, there's more work in the private party segment in the sense of you have to follow up. You have to have a pipeline. You have to do certain things. However, if you had more control and got cars that no one else had and that had higher turns and had the potential for more profit, because we won't get into the conversation of you could buy the right cars and not make money if you don't have the right advertising plan. But I'm just curious. And again, when you guys watch this, I want comments. I want so many comments so that we have to keep getting better at this. But how many dealers out there are okay giving up control to the auction rather than controlling their outcome themselves? I'm just oddly curious. So
I got to tell you,
if you're okay telling the auction, hey guys, I don't really need to make profit. I rather pay my profits to you in auction fees, then go ahead and put it in there. We're not going to chastise you. If you're okay giving the profits to Manheim, they thank you. Your card's in the mail. I just talked to Jason Atley last week. He says he appreciates all of you.
Yeah.
Right. Now, if you're the ones that say, I want to take control, and you know what? Yes, there's a purpose for the auctions, but I want to take control so that I know whether or not I'm winning or losing. Okay. Those are the ones that listen. You can get old Jen, you can get old me, but guys, there's options out there and great options now. We're not talking about 15 years ago where there was maybe possibly one. No, they have now come a long way. I've said it on a couple of podcasts before, and you'll hear me say it a lot, is I have been building buying centers since 2010.
Yeah.
It's 2024 and it's just now a buzzword.
Well, so, it's more than just buy center, Darrell. You're building the process, and we've both sat with those dealers before, and it's like, you're helping them build the process, not just buy cars. It's not surface level anymore. Take the surface level out of it and let's build that process.
And I ask you, and so a great example of this, and Jen, you may know who they are, you may not, but so new car franchises, it's kind of cheating, right? You have a new car franchise, right? So the manufacturer does some advertising before you get some branding, you get that. Is you have a buy center, right? You have to brand it. It's a brand. You have to start doing it. Well, there's a group out in the East Coast, okay? Some of you guys that are watching this might know who they are. Eastern Automotive Group, okay? AKA the Beast in the East, independent used car operation, selling 1,100 used cars a month, okay? Absolutely murdering it. One of the most efficient things I've ever seen. Now ask yourself if you're him. You're not a Ford store. You're not a Chevy store. You're not a Stellantis product store or a Nissan store. Not to say those are terrible, but
put them last.
But they're struggling right now. So if you were just an independent store and you didn't have any first party, first tier and everything else, what would you do differently about making sure your experience and your brand was more prevalent? And I think it's interesting because when it comes to a buying center, that is an independent, right? It's not your store. It's a completely different methodology to the public. It has nothing to do with sales, directly to the consumer. And so when you ask yourself that is, when you talk about your experience, what do you stand for, right? How are you then letting people know? How do they, as Jen has eloquently put it, how do they verify you are who you are, right? And more importantly is, if I took the badge off your dealership, would you do as well as you do now with the way that you're then putting your message out there, right? It really comes down to that experience and how you treat it. So my brand, I treat as, listen, you're going to see it everywhere. Shameless plugs everywhere. I got zero shame whatsoever. That's what I do. Somebody else I saw do it actually, and he transports cars, but a gentleman named Don Brady.
Oh yeah.
His brand is great. It's a palm tree, a smile. And he's like, and I ship cars or I transport cars. Like when you see it, you can't forget it. Like it's everywhere.
Yep.
So you have to ask yourself, and mind you, is, do I know you're buying cars? And when I say this, please do not go put a damn banner on the side of your store that says we buy cars. Like, if you do it just to drive me bananas, good for you. Okay. Way to be a super troll. Okay. I love it. But you've got to do more than putting up
you gotta own it.
A tarp that you put some letters on it saying we buy cars, because when I come in, do you put me through the 1980s old school movie of Suckers in order to get my car sold? Do you throw my keys on the roof? Does it take 4 hours to appraise it? Again,
Darrell, the 5 dealers that I shopped on their We Buy Cars, 3 of them had salespeople calling me trying to flip me.
Well, that's it. Listen, we're going to have a whole different podcast to talk about the sales experience to buying. Because listen, I'll tie this in and wrap this up, guys, because we will cover that. I'll get Jen back on, and I'll get Jen and one other person, because there's another person we could have a nice little conversation is. Okay. But something for you guys to think about to come later is, when you guys have third-party lead providers, any of them, it doesn't matter, right? From KBB to AccuTrade to Cars to Edmunds to TrueCar, does not matter who they are. I want you guys to ask yourself one thing. They submit their car with a trade-in and or they want to sell their car. Go back to your store right now, okay? And I want you to go look at what you send them. And I want you to honestly ask yourself,
please,
did you answer any of the customers' questions, or did you push your own agenda?
And were you helpful?
And we're going to leave that particular topic at that, because, well, we are definitely covering that topic in this experience for sure. But what I wanted to tell you guys is, listen, I will personally tell you, Jen is great. I've gotten to work with her on a couple different things, but I wanted her on here because Jen gives something that a lot of people are afraid of. Jen gives cold, hard facts and just right to the point truth. And much like myself, okay, the truth hurts only when it should. And so if you get like, wow, I don't really like that, it's probably because something rang true. And when I say probably, I mean, and absolutely. Case in point, you don't get mad and you don't fight back on something that you don't believe is true. Okay. It's not worth your time or your effort. But Jen also does another thing. Okay. Under all the tough exterior, okay, Jen is one of the most caring people when it comes to her clients. She'll put in the time, she'll put in the effort. And so when you're looking for building those partnerships, it's all about finding the right ones, right? Anyone can offer you something. Anyone can undercut someone by a couple $100 on price, but you have to ask yourself, is price more important, or is productivity and efficiency more important, right? It's the always don't step over $1 to pick up a dime. Okay. When you find the right dollar, pick it up and run with it. But we want to wrap this up. I want to say thank you to Jen for coming on here, talking about the experience. And guys, what we've done today is what we do every single time on Street Smarts. Okay. We went and found people in the streets that are there. These aren't the VPs. These aren't the presidents. These aren't the talking points. This is real life, real communication, and what we really see, not what we get told. Okay. And I'm pretty sure Jen dropped the mic on us a couple times and put us right in the streets. But more importantly, she gave us concrete stuff we could do today to take money from the streets back into our store. We thank everybody. Thank you for coming to Street Smarts. And we look forward to seeing you guys later. Jen, hang out with me for just 1 second.
All right.